The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sprawling plains, turning the golden grasses into rivers of amber and fire. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow as he rode his old bay mare, Dusty, steadily moving along the northern fence line of his ranch. The cattle were restless, some mooing softly, others kicking up small clouds of dust as they grazed in the fading light. Jack had spent decades on this land, born and raised in the heart of the West, where the earth was rough and the sky stretched endlessly overhead. It was the kind of place that demanded respect, from the land, from the weather, and from the creatures that lived here. Jack's gaze was steady, but wary. The forest edge loomed ahead, a dense wall of pines and oaks that bordered the open range. He usually avoided venturing too deep into those woods, not just because of the wild animals that lurked within, but because of the stories passed down from his grandfather about the tribe that lived beyond the trees. The native people who had called this land home long before settlers like him arrived. They kept mostly to themselves, but Jack had never held any ill will toward them. If anything, he respected their knowledge of the land and their quiet dignity. As he guided Dusty toward a thicket near the tree line, a sudden, faint noise caught his attention. At first, it was almost imperceptible, a soft grunt, followed by a weak groan that didn't fit the natural sounds of the wilderness. Jack stopped and strained his ears, listening carefully. The sounds came again, this time more clearly. A man in pain, struggling to breathe. His instincts kicked in without hesitation. Setting Dusty to a slow walk, he moved cautiously toward the source. The thick underbrush gave way to a small clearing where Jack saw him. A man lying on the ground, partially obscured by fallen branches and dry leaves. The man's clothes were torn, stained with dirt and blood, and his face was pale and drawn. Jack's heart tightened. He could see a deep wound on the man's side, crimson darkening the fabric and soaking the earth beneath him. Despite the injury, the man's eyes flickered open and locked on Jack's face with a mixture of pain and cautious hope. Hey, easy now, Jack said softly, approaching slowly to avoid startling him. I'm here to help. The man didn't speak, but Jack recognized the intricate beadwork on his leather vest and the feathers woven into his hair. This was no ordinary stranger. He was a tribal leader, perhaps the chief himself. Jack had heard tales of Tall Bear, a respected warrior and protector of his people. Seeing him like this, vulnerable and wounded, struck a chord deep within Jack's chest. Jack quickly tore the sleeve off his own shirt, fashioning a makeshift bandage. Kneeling beside the man, he pressed the cloth against the bleeding wound, applying firm pressure to stem the flow. The chief winced but did not resist. Jack's hands were steady, practiced from years of ranch work and tending to injured animals. He worked swiftly, knowing that every second counted. Can you move? Jack asked, his voice low and steady. The chief nodded faintly, trying to sit up but wincing sharply. Jack steadied him gently. Don't try too hard. We're gonna get you out of here. The chief's dark eyes searched Jack's face, filled with a mixture of pain and something else, trust, perhaps, or gratitude. It was a silent exchange, wordless but profound. Jack reached for the reins of Dusty, guiding her closer so the chief could be lifted onto the horse. It wasn't easy. The man was heavy, and the wound made every movement agonizing. But Jack's resolve was unwavering. Once the chief was settled carefully across Dusty's back, Jack climbed up behind him, wrapping one arm securely around the injured man to keep him steady. The horse shifted nervously, sensing the tension in the air. Jack whispered soothing words to Dusty, urging her forward slowly at first, then picking up pace as the sun continued to sink. The ride back to the ranch was quiet except for the steady thud of hooves and the chief's labored breathing. Jack's mind raced. How had Tall Bear ended up injured so far from his people? Had there been a fight, an accident? Jack knew the lands were tense, with outsiders often encroaching on tribal grounds, and sometimes violence erupted. But Jack didn't have time to speculate. His priority was getting the chief safe and tended to. As the familiar silhouette of the ranch came into view against the backdrop of twilight, Jack felt a surge of relief. He guided Dusty toward the barn, careful not to jostle the chief. Once inside, he eased the man down onto a pile of blankets and rags he quickly gathered. The wound was deep, and Jack knew he needed to clean it properly to prevent infection. He fetched water from the well and a small kit he kept for emergencies, bandages, antiseptic, and some herbal salves his grandmother had taught him to prepare. The chief watched silently as Jack worked, his breathing growing steadier under the rancher's attentive care. Jack talked softly, hoping the sound of his voice might comfort the wounded man. He didn't expect any response, but the chief's eyes followed every movement with quiet gratitude. Night fell around them. The ranch bathed in the gentle glow of lantern light. Outside, the prairie wind whispered through the grasses, carrying the distant calls of coyotes and owls. Inside, Jack stayed by the chief's side, wrapping the wound carefully and making sure the man was warm and stable. For the first time, Jack realized this moment was more than just an act of kindness. It was the beginning of something new, a fragile thread woven between two worlds that rarely met, but both deeply cherished this land. The first pale light of dawn crept softly over the horizon, casting a gentle glow across Jack's ranch. The world seemed to hold its breath in that quiet early hour, when everything was still and new. Inside the modest farmhouse, Jack moved, with practiced care, mindful not to disturb the wounded man resting in the corner. Chief Tall Bear had settled into a shallow sleep, his breathing slow and even for the first time since Jack found him. The rancher sat beside the chief, his eyes scanning the dim room, a mixture of resolve and hope etched deeply across his weathered face. Jack had spent the night doing what he could, cleaning and dressing the chief's wound with water warmed over the fire, mixing the herbal salves he knew from old family remedies, and whispering encouragement, even though he wasn't sure the chief understood his words. Despite the barrier between their languages, Jack felt a quiet connection growing, a bridge of trust forming in the shared silence. Outside, the sounds of the ranch were waking up: the lowing of cattle, the creak of the barn door as the morning breeze stirred the wooden beams, and the distant call of a hawk circling above. Jack rose and stepped out onto the porch, the cool air filling his lungs. He looked toward the forest where the tribe's lands began, wondering how word of the chief's rescue might have spread so quickly. The native people rarely mingled with outsiders, but if the stories were true, the news had already reached the tribe. Minutes later, as the sun climbed higher and the ranch yard came alive with life, a small group approached cautiously from the tree line. Jack spotted them before they reached the fence, a gathering of 5 or 6 figures dressed in traditional clothing, their movements deliberate and respectful. At their head was an elder woman, her face lined with years of wisdom and strength, carrying a woven basket filled with wild herbs and roots. Jack stepped forward to meet them, raising a hand in greeting. The group paused, their eyes wary but not hostile. The elder woman spoke softly in her native tongue, her voice calm but firm. One of the younger men, serving as an interpreter, stepped forward and explained, "We come with gifts for the man you saved. Chief Tall Bear is a respected leader of our people. Your kindness has reached us, and we bring these to show our gratitude." Jack nodded, feeling a deep respect swell in his chest. "I did what I could," he replied simply. "He's a strong man." He motioned toward the farmhouse where the chief rested, and the group followed him inside. The elder woman carefully placed the basket on the table. Inside were bundles of dried herbs known for their healing properties: sage, sweetgrass, and willow bark, gifts from the earth that the tribe had long revered. Alongside them lay a hand-woven blanket, crafted from soft, colorful threads in intricate patterns representing the tribe's history and values. It was a gift heavy with meaning, a symbol of welcome and peace. Jack handled the blanket with reverence, his fingers tracing the delicate stitching. He understood that this was more than just a present. It was an invitation to a relationship built on trust and respect. Though the language barrier remained, gestures and shared glances spoke volumes. Jack offered food and water, and the visitors accepted graciously. Breaking bread quietly in the humble kitchen, stories flowed not in words, but in the warmth of shared presence and the recognition of common humanity. Jack showed them the wound and the care he'd taken, and the elder woman nodded approvingly, murmuring blessings in her tongue. For hours, the group remained, teaching Jack through simple signs about their customs, their deep connection to the land, and the importance of the chief to their people. Jack listened intently, feeling humbled by their resilience and grace. As the sun climbed higher and the visitors prepared to leave, the elder woman looked Jack in the eye. "You have saved our leader," she said solemnly. "You have shown honor. Our people will remember." Jack nodded, his voice steady. "I want to learn. I want to understand." He hoped the words would carry meaning beyond their simple form. The group disappeared back into the forest, leaving behind the lingering scent of sage and the sense that something profound had begun. Jack stood on the porch, watching the trees sway gently in the breeze, feeling the weight of new responsibility settle on his shoulders. The connection between the rancher and the tribe was fragile but real, a thread woven through acts of kindness and respect. Jack knew that the days ahead would bring challenges and discoveries about the land, about the people, and about himself. For the first time in many years, the old stories about the tribe felt alive, no longer distant legends but a living, breathing reality sharing this vast land with him, and Jack was ready to meet them halfway. The morning sun was bright and warm as it spilled across the ranch, casting long shadows over the rolling hills and the scattered patches of wildflowers. Jack stood near the porch, his eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting something extraordinary to happen. And in truth, something extraordinary was about to unfold, a moment that neither he nor the tribe could have anticipated when the chief first fell wounded in the forest. The sound of footsteps broke the peaceful silence, and Jack turned to see 5 women emerging from the tree line. They moved with quiet grace, their eyes steady and purposeful. Each woman was distinct, one tall with long dark hair woven with feathers, another with bright eyes and a gentle smile, a third carrying a small bundle wrapped carefully in cloth. Their clothing was traditional but adapted for the rugged life of the land, made of soft leather and embroidered with patterns that told stories of ancestors and seasons. Jack's heart quickened. The arrival of the women was unlike anything he had expected. He remembered the elders' words the day before: gifts, honor, respect. But this was something more profound. The women approached the porch with reverence. One stepped forward and spoke through the interpreter who had arrived with them. "These women come as a gift to you, to honor your courage and kindness in saving Chief Tall Bear. It is a sacred offering from our people, a symbol of alliance and trust." Jack felt a mix of awe and humility. He understood the weight of the gesture. In the tribe's culture, such an offering was rare and sacred, a bond that went beyond words. The women were not merely gifts, but representatives of a bridge being built between two worlds. He welcomed them inside with the utmost respect, offering water and fresh cloth to make them comfortable. The women shared quiet smiles, and the small bundle one carried was revealed a newborn child, wrapped in soft blankets, a symbol of new life and hope. Jack knelt to look into the baby's eyes and felt a deep stirring in his soul. This was not just an exchange of gifts or gratitude. It was a beginning of family, friendship, and a promise that would bind their futures together. Over the next hours, stories were exchanged through the interpreter and gestures. Jack learned about each woman: a healer skilled in herbs, a storyteller keeper of ancient songs, a hunter with unmatched tracking skills, a weaver whose hands crafted beauty from thread, and the youngest, a mother whose child carried the spirit of their tribe's future. The ranch, once a solitary place of hard work and quiet days, became alive with laughter, songs, and the mingling of traditions. Jack saw how the women's presence brought a new rhythm to his life, one that blended respect for the land with a deep understanding of its history and people. As evening fell, Jack sat outside with Chief Tall Bear, now stronger and resting peacefully. The chief's eyes gleamed with gratitude and pride as he saw the women settled comfortably nearby. He placed a hand on Jack's shoulder and nodded silently, a gesture of thanks and brotherhood. Jack looked up at the vast sky, dotted with stars, feeling the weight of what had begun. The gift was not just of 5 women, it was a new chapter, a commitment to honor, friendship, and shared futures. The ranch was no longer just his alone. It belonged, in a way, to the tribe. In the quiet of that night, Jack made a vow to protect this fragile alliance, to learn, to listen, and to honor the sacred trust that had been placed in him. The unexpected gift was a blessing, a reminder that sometimes the greatest strength comes from opening one's heart and accepting the bonds of community and kinship.